Hi, this is The Business Guy. I have a very special guest for you today. This is Mark Olson. He's the CEO of MRM Nutrition. He's out floating around on his yacht somewhere. Let's go ahead and get him on the line. And if you appreciate this video, please click like below so YouTube promotes it. And you can also click the subscribe button below if you haven't already, so that when more videos come out like this, you'll be up to date right away. So let's get Mark. Oh, and one more thing. Mark happens to be my next door neighbor. So if he's out on his yacht and it happens to be next to my house, that would be quite convenient. Hey, what do you know? Mark's home.
Business guy.
Hey, how you doing, Mark? I have some friends of mine who'd like to hear from you, so you think you can make it on over?
I'll come on down.
Sounds good to me.
We'll see you in a few. On your side of the dock?
On my side of the dock. We'll have a little chat. He's very relaxed. Mark, good to have you here.
Nice to see you.
Absolutely.
The business guy.
Yeah. So tell us about your company.
Well, my company is ChemiSource. I started in '96, and it was to initially supply ingredients to all the major nutraceutical companies and so forth. Because of recognition of an opportunity, I found that they weren't as receptive to these new compounds because they didn't understand them. And I saw the future in them, so I needed to take it to market directly. So first of all, I started as a doctors only line. And that was very interesting, but there's not a lot of growth initiative in there until you put in a lot of years in advertising. So I had a strong reception from a lot of the retailers, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Vitamin Cottage, and they suggested I make it open to everyone.
Okay.
And that was in '96, and MRM, Metabolic Response Modifiers, is the name of the brand.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I'm actually one of your biggest fans. I have the protein powder, this great big 5-pound bag.
Yeah.
And this isn't an advertisement for the product, but I just wanted to say I actually use it.
Yep.
Not the purpose of the video, mind you, but
Did you want that $5 now or later?
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I actually use it myself. So, and we have people watching. Well, three kind of categories. One, people who really want to start a business, people who are in a business and they're struggling, or people that are doing well. They just want to make it better. What would you tell the people who they really want to start a business? They really want to do better. They want to better themselves and they want to start a business. What's your most important advice to those people who want to start a business?
The biggest overall factor that differentiated myself, before when I was going through grad school, I was also a consultant. So I consulted for a vitamin company. I worked in R&D and product formulation. And then I went to, part of my job was to go to the contract manufacturers that they were using and make sure they're using good manufacturing practices and audit the facility and use my scientific know-how to read a lot of the reports and find out where the differences are, where the difficulties are, and really give the upper management a good lay of the landscape.
So you didn't just shoot out of the cannon and say, "Here I am, world, I'm in business."
No.
You got a good solid background first.
Yeah. The background
So,
was all the math, really, a lot of math and so forth, and understanding chemical interactions. But the differentiator was that translation to business, and what made me successful in business was that I had tested all aspects of the waters that surround that business, from ingredients to ingredient development and registration and filing to make it available in the U.S. to put into formulas. So honestly, I've been involved from the ground up. Not only did I review irrigation programs, crop cycling programs, do soil nutritional analysis or soil analysis, and then do water analysis. And then on top of that, we had pesticides, their pesticide programs, and their fertilizing programs. So all those really can tell you a lot about what's best crop for that soil and how to rotate that soil and use regenerative farming practices.
So people that work for you, probably
And
everybody,
with me.
and with you, you've probably done all those jobs yourself.
Yes,
So they can't really pull the wool over your eyes because you know
exactly.
how it's done.
Yeah. And when you do that, when you're involved in these different segments of the business, you generate friends. And if you have any curious ideas, then people like to talk to you, and you stay in touch with them, even though you're not involved with them. And so you always have this, you used to call it a Rolodex, but your little cachet of the experts in all those. Hey, did you hear about this? You know, especially when new stuff would come around. The great thing about our industry, it's very green, and it likes to recycle ingredients, fads, people. It's really funny how it works. But
you know, I found the same way when I started. I was a salesman. I took the calls. I did the document filings, and did the customer service and everything.
Right.
And now I have people who we work together. We're one big happy family, and I know I can relate to them because I've done their job. They're employees, but I've done their jobs.
Right.
So I know how to work with them and how to assess if they're doing a good job or not.
Right.
If they're not doing it quickly enough, or I know that because I've done that job before.
Yeah.
Sounds like you have that kind of
and
background.
it's all about your ability to manage them is through your empathy.
Right.
And if you've been in their shoes, then you can talk to them about it, and you can say, well, I know this is a problem, or this is a pain in the butt. How do you go about it? You know, and give them leading questions so they're participating and telling you how the job runs.
Right. Get respect their feedback and input.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're not just the
Well,
taskmaster lording over them.
No, and you don't want to go do that job.
No.
So you want to work with them. You want to motivate them.
Yeah.
By letting them own their job.
Right.
And then using your smarts to help support them.
Now, there's people who are watching who already have started their businesses, but they're struggling. What's the biggest mistake that you see entrepreneurs make?
At the top?
At the top?
Well,
the
it's
middle?
I would say that, one, you got to value your employees.
Yeah.
Because they can be your cheerleaders. They can turn things around. They'll be your cheerleader when things are tough.
Right.
And so you feed off each other, and it's a wonderful thing. But I'd say as a CEO, when you think that you need this or you're against the ropes, you usually don't stick to your primary mission statement, which you don't need to really go look for opportunities. And a lot of guys start chasing opportunities, and they'll start doing what their competition is doing, even though it doesn't, jive with their core mix of what they're good at. So keep your message straight. Don't go all over the place chasing rabbits. Some pay off, but in the long run, it doesn't serve you well.
Right, and like Jeff Bezos says, we're not competitor focused, we're customer focused.
Yes.
A white hot passion to serve the customer.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's your boss, the customer.
Absolutely.
So listen to them, and it's there's two ways to sell product. There's one, it's being a part of a trend or leading a trend. And a lot of times you're leading the trend is very difficult. It's a fish going upstream, creating categories. Believe me, this is the heart and soul of my angst for the last 26 years. That I get so excited and so passionate, and I know everybody needs it, but the problem is you have to have the support to go with it. And so I've had great products come out that I'm now relaunching because they're way before their time, and I didn't have the support to give it. Right.
Now, there's also people who, like I've run my business for 31 years, and you've been close to the same amount of time, and so that staying power is quite rare.
Yeah.
Some people watching are successful business people. They're doing well. And what have you seen people who are doing well? What mistakes have you seen them make to go from the height, the high of the heights down to crashing down?
Right. Well, be humble. First of all, recognize that if you spend $10 million, yes, you may create a trend, but it's got to be receptive on the other side. So it's a 50-50 shot anyways.
Yeah.
But being responsive to where they're at, being humble and empathetic, that which I've prayed for years, because I've always seen I lack in it. is being empathetic to people and being able to read them and taking in, not trying to convert them, but show them how to take a stepwise forward. Because everybody can take a step.
Right.
But most people give up when they see the full path ahead of them. So it's really just encouraging people and stuff like that. It's kind of
Right.
the
But
best.
I agree with what you said, because when I grew up in a middle class family and started doing well, I kind of got a little big headed,
Yeah.
too big for my britches,
Yeah.
and I need to slap myself in the face and say, no, you're not going to act like that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
And being right isn't right.
right, yeah, yeah,
And it's being empathetic is always right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I read a book by Sam Walton, and he said, in my business, I can't go around and beat my chest and have a big ego. It has no place in business.
Absolutely.
And his humility was a big part of his character,
Mhm.
even though he was the richest man in the world at the time when he was alive.
Right.
He said, I have to keep humble. And he
Right.
drove around in an old pickup truck and went bird hunting.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
keeping humble, even when things are going well,
Yeah.
is probably one of the keys to staying.
Yeah.
Uh,
Stay who you are.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you start indulging in all your passions, big boats,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can lose your way, and what it does is it changes your character.
Right. So
And
you can have the nice
eats
stuff,
away. Yeah.
and you can enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Right.
And after all, it's nice to reward ourselves when we do well.
Mm-hmm.
But keep it in perspective and
Yes.
maintain humility
Yes.
in the midst of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when your back's up against the wall, which we all will have at
Oh,
some
yeah.
point,
Yeah.
where you're like, cash flow, or no one's interested in this product, or whatever. Stay true to yourself. Don't panic. You're in it for the long haul, so just limit your exposures.
So tell me your humble beginning story.
Well, I was not I was not interested in nutrition except for my own personal interests. I played water polo in high school, and swimming and surfing, and a lot of aerobic type of sports. So my calorie consumption was massive, and I was always looking to see where I could optimize what I'm eating. And I had a lot of influence. As you know, Southern California was kind of a hotbed for natural and hippie-oriented type of eating and nutrition.
Yeah. By the way, it happens to be Mark and I are next door neighbors, but we also both lived in California. I moved here about 8 years ago, and Mark moved to Florida about a year and a half ago.
That's right.
And so happens to be we're both from California originally and live here now and happen to be next door neighbors. So.
Yeah, and as you know, the California mentality, which is much like in Florida, where you're outside enjoying your surroundings a large portion of the time, and you're not forced indoors. So given that, it gives rise to year-long activity and people being more interested in performing in those activities.
Right.
And also the nature of all of us hippies were to be more natural. And I took that to heart. My mom took that to heart, and she was a professional athlete herself. So she told me her time-tested remedies, and then I tried my own. And then you heard what was coming down the grapevine. And then when I was 26 years old, I decided I had help deciding to grow up and see what my passion is.
So nutrition was something that you were interested in before starting the business. Something
Yes,
you
personally.
really had a personal interest
On a
in.
personal
Being
nature.
healthy, natural,
Right.
and you were actually surfed for a while.
Yeah, I surfed for a
That
while.
that was your passion for a while, and you did
Oh,
that for
yes.
many years.
Either frozen water or liquid water, because I also like to ski.
Ah,
And being in California, you have that. You can be within 2 hours. You can be in the water or on the top of the hill skiing.
now some people that go through high school and they have parents say study, study, study,
Yeah.
and they get out of high school and they go right to college and they know exactly what they want to do and they have a plan.
Yeah.
Did your life go like that?
Not at all. And fortunately, my father encouraged me to find my passion. And he had enough foresight to see that when your passion's your work, there is no work. So Given that, I had to have basically a 2x4 to the head to stop me and make me take an account of my life and my worthiness and my journey and why am I here and all of that, and did a lot of soul searching, did a development of my own spiritual life, and wanted to pursue nutrition, and I had a lot of good mentors around me, and I was told to go into dietetics and learn all the basics, the biochemistry, the organic chemistry, and lots of pathology and understanding your body and anatomy, physiology.
You know, they say that when you become a master at something, it takes about 10,000 hours to do so. Whether it's music or business, whatever it is, it takes 10,000 hours, they say, approximately, to become a master at something. And so your dedication, you educated yourself,
Yes.
got knowledge, so you can become an expert.
Yes.
And then there had to be some. Where did you learn your business savvy? There had to be some of that in there too.
I think that came more naturally than the science side. The science is part of my curiosity that's natural to me, but the business side was dealing with people and negotiating. And I had 4 sisters, so I was negotiating a lot as a kid and learning to read the table. So business hasn't been that much. As a matter of fact, I was a business major before I had my epiphany and changed to a science major.
So your undergrad was business,
Yes,
and then you got your master's in
science.
science.
Clinical
Okay, yeah.
nutrition. Actually,
Right.
my undergrad, I got to a junior in business, and then I had to retake all my undergrad general elective stuff because that I had to do all science instead of others. So that being said, I had a lot of schooling ahead of me, and it was quite humbling to do at 26 and 27 years old.
Yeah.
But when I went through my dietetics program in my undergrad, I finished and went into clinical because I didn't want to do community nutrition. I had already worked in a hospital a little bit, and I knew that wasn't for me. Mine was more just curiosity and working with people that were like me, that wanted to improve their life in incremental factors.
Would you call business a passion of yours?
I'd call people a passion of mine.
People of passion. Yeah.
Yeah. And to do that, there's two sides to things. There's the economic side where you can make money at it, but then the education side, which I've always used instead of advertising, to drive customers to my products. And that being said, if you're not going to be using print or other forms of media, you have to have lots of cheerleaders. So that was my job, is to turn the salespeople on the floor at the stores into my cheerleaders. And many of them are quite savvy. They've been doing it for a long time, so they're really good at weeding out some of these half-baked ideas in nutrition that make it to shelves. On the internet, you have a whole different story. The biggest marketing wins. And
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff out there with nutrition, fads, and old wives' tales and things
Right,
like that.
right.
How do you get people educated so they get past the things you might see on Facebook that are
Well,
false information?
you have to address those during your talks, and you give them an answer to that and say, well, this isn't completely true. And that's usually the situation is it's a half-truth. And they let people assume the completion of that thought would be true, but it's not always true. And so that's really what's made my positioning within the marketplace, it just came to me simply because of my background, in that there were a lot of nutritionists, but not a lot of accredited nutritionists that didn't go through dietetics program or didn't go through the rigors of biochem and organic chemistry, so that you see that, no, we don't actually make that enzyme, so it doesn't convert to that in the body.
Right.
And a lot of that would go on, and I would spell that out in my talks and my trainings, and that's really what drove us. And they would come to us to ask about the gimmicks and the fads that are coming down the line.
Right.
And if we didn't pick them up, a lot of times the stores wouldn't pick them up as far as that format.
Now let's talk about the best times and the worst of times. What was the most painful experience you've had running a business? You don't mind talking about it?
Lawyers.
Yeah.
So there was, fortunately, that my pain was minimal compared to many others.
Right.
I happened to be a part of some big class action suits where they had Abbott involved, and there are some big counsel groups, and so I just rode on their coattails. But to see politicians manipulate science, and in California, it's at another level. And what they did is they took the federal level of what you see as toxic heavy metals. And these are naturally occurring, and heavy metals aren't toxic to us unless we take in toxic amounts.
Right.
And like I was saying, it's all about the dose. In life, it's about the dose. In everything we eat, it's about the dose.
Yeah, because all of us eat a certain amount of arsenic every year.
Right.
But it's the volume of arsenic that is the difference between it being okay and it killing you.
Yeah, it's the dose. How much over time? If it's a short amount of time and it's high amount, that's bad. If it's a little bit over years, your body's designed to take that in.
Right.
So the lawyers saw the federal level that was designed by scientists, and the scientists who used that analytical equipment, so they understood how it worked. But the politicians moved the decimal place over one.
Don't you love California?
Which created a boondoggle of false positives in testing.
Right.
Because to get down to that millimole level, you know, and a lot of it's in micro and pico amounts, you can have a hot spot here and none here. And so it's where your sampling comes into effect, and how many samples, and dialing in the machine before you do the analysis, make sure all your standards are correct and everything's reporting correct and precisely. So yeah, it's just lawyers manipulating science, which is kind of my little last bastion of what I think that man can't goof with, because it's our universe, and we try to manipulate it with our inorganics, but the organic side of things is well known, and it's just a beautiful thing once you start to understand it.
Yeah, because knowing you, I can see that your ethics are way up here, your passion to do the right thing is way up here, and when you have people who aren't in the know trying to regulate you, that don't really know how things work, it's a little bit difficult to deal with, and probably very expensive too.
Yes, it is.
Deal with lawyers.
Fortunately, I take it head on, and I take it personally, which you shouldn't do. Don't ever take these lawsuits personally. But especially with the FDA. So I deal with the FDA on a regular basis. Many of them have taken the same science courses I have, so we can have intelligent discussions. I'm not there to say you're the enemy and try and treat them badly when they're, you know, peers of mine. So deal with the government, their people. Try and remind that person on the other side that they're a person just like you. Right. And you usually get a better response.
Good point. And what about the most exciting thing that's ever happened in your career?
The birth of my kids?
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'll tell you the background of ChemiSource. So I was working as a consultant for a famous label brand, and the top sales guy was talking to me at lunch after some conference and so forth, and he said, "Oh, you know about all these new compounds that people don't know about, or potential compounds," and it was really exciting. And this was in the 90s.
And based on your education, you had a background, you knew that stuff.
Right. And so he saw all the potential. And he had a money guy, so it was his idea to start ChemiSource. And I was going to be 1/3 partner, and then the money guy backed out, so my dad said he'll back me, so he gave me an extra 10 grand. I'd saved up like 20 grand, and I asked the other guy to help me, and he backed out. He said he couldn't touch his little nest egg. They were going to buy a condo. And he's kicking himself
got beat
now.
out by a condo.
Yeah. But so honestly, it was an opportunity. I was left holding the bag.
Yeah. So the other two guys backed out.
Yep.
So what you were going to be 1/3, have 1/3 of the pie, you ended up with the whole pie.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had a couple guys that gave me money a year later, and so I own 95%.
And they say that 50% of marriages end in divorce. 85% of partnerships break up.
Right.
One person has more knowledge, does more work. There's different ideas in how the business should be run, and it turns into a fight.
Just like a band.
Yeah.
Some guys think they're the creative one. No, I'm creative. And so
yeah.
you just, but you know, unfortunately, it worked out that way. I wish I would say I'm the smart guy. I said no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But no. So if you can do it the right way and start all on your own and use as much bank money instead of personal money, and or not personal, your money, but not sell stock.
Right.
Yeah, if you can hold on to that as long as possible.
And what about debt? What's your opinion on in getting debt for your business?
As little as possible. Make
I
sure
agree.
it's always
Hear
manageable.
Hear that?
Because banks can pull the carpet out from under you and ruin your business. So
Yeah.
and they don't believe in you when you need it.
Yeah.
They
True.
believe in you when you don't need it.
Exactly. Yeah, when you don't need it, y'all have all kinds of money coming in. They see you're lucrative. Hey, they'll throw all kinds of money at you.
You
But
know,
when you need it the most, they don't want to touch you.
But sorry, going back to what the question was. So when I came home and told my wife that I'm starting a new company, was the same night she told me that we're pregnant with our first.
Wow.
Oh, just pulled barrels in my mouth right there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's similar.
I went for it.
In fact, when I got rooked by a con man, which really started the asset protection business, the day the lawsuit showed up the door and the guy handed me the legal papers was the exact same day we brought our son home from the hospital.
Oh.
Same day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good. Evil.
Exactly. So anyway, that started the passion for the business to protect people's money from lawsuits.
Yes.
And that's where all that all started. Isn't it funny how having a child at the same time is a tough situation and a challenge.
It's a cataclysmic event.
Yeah, you have children to support at the same time you're fighting a battle or starting something. It's a new venture.
You're in a new battle, and you just became a man.
Exactly, right, exactly, yeah. It's great.
Oh.
Any parting shots, any last words?
Just get as much experience. Oh, the other thing I want to bring up was when my partners backed out and I needed to come up with a lot of money, what I had were my relationships. I had the contract manufacturers said, "That's all right, Mark. I'll encapsulate it for you. I'll get it in a bottle for you. I'll front some of that money if you can take care of this." Right. And we had an agreement. And I said, I'll pay you for every dollar I get off a bottle. I'll pay you first. And they knew that.
Right.
They knew that about my character. So when I ordered the raw materials from overseas, they believed in me, and because I had shown myself to be quite knowledgeable, and they've made money off me before, so they gave me 50,000 lines of credit, unsecured.
Wow, great.
From China, Brazil, Japan. Yeah, it was awesome to have everybody, all your friends pitch in and say, "Yeah, go for it. You'll do good."
What's the best way to keep a good reputation in business?
Don't chase too many rabbits.
Yeah.
Stay true to who you are, and just sit back and let everybody find you. At least that was my way.
Yeah.
You can advertise and put it out there and grow much quicker, but remember, it's only an enjoyable business when growth is at its sweet spot.
Right.
You don't want it too much and too little.
That was one of the biggest mistakes I made, is that I started chasing all the shiny objects like a raccoon.
Right.
And it took me off course, and I started doing things that weren't within my circle of knowledge.
Right.
And that's where I got in the biggest trouble in business. So I needed to remind myself, stay in your lane, stay in your lane.
That's right.
Yeah.
Perfect what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's so much you can still do in your own lane.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Good.
yeah.
Well, thank you for spending the time to talk with us. I appreciate
Well, now
it.
I have about 15 feet over there to go.
That's true. You don't have far to walk. All right, Mark.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.